This episode of the Jiu Jitsu Times podcast is brought to you in part by No Judges Needed BJJ Apparel and Lavender Lane CBD products. You can use the promo code JJT for 20% off your first order at No Judges Needed, and the code JJTimes20, all uppercase. Last two items are numerical for 20% off your first order of CBD products. Thank you very much for sticking with us. Enjoy the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Jiu Jitsu Times podcast. I am your host, Kevin Bradley, and today we've got, joined as always by my co-host, Kevin Gallagher.
Jesus, don't forget. I know it's Lauzon on the other side, but at least give me an introduction.
I'm so starstruck. I forgot my ride or die, my number one, my podcast husband, Kevin Gallagher. We got a big guest today. Continuing the string of people that make me kind of crap my pants before we start these things. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, UFC legend, just up there with the best of the best, and proud Massachusetts son, Joe Lauzon. Joe, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
I think there's an elephant in the air just because you being from where you're from. Can you hear me all right?
Yep. No, I was saying elephant, big ears.
Got it. Yeah. How you holding up since Brady? How you doing?
We're good. I'm gonna be a Tom Brady fan regardless. I'm first and foremost a Patriots fan, but I'm happy for the Buccaneers, for Brady and Gronk. I think it's awesome. It's gonna be kind of nice because now Brady's really he's investing in on what he's gonna do, right? So was it the Brady Belichick combo that did one so well? Was it Bill Belichick? Was it Tom Brady? Tom Brady and Gronk is gonna be pretty powerful. I'm really interested to see. I'll be watching all the Buccaneers games this year. I'll be watching the Patriots games, but I'll be watching the Buck games too. So it's gonna be exciting. It's gonna be good.
My mom is one of those fans that's so Team Brady over Patriots that she's buying Buccaneers jerseys.
Yeah.
I can't fault her for it. I gotta say, of the people from the Boston area I know, you've given me the most polite response to the question.
Well, here's my thing. So for the past few years, Brady's taken reductions in pay, and he's structured contracts in a way that would allow the team to do better, right? The team has more money. He wasn't trying to get top dollar, but now he's at the end of his career. I still don't think it's necessarily about getting top dollar as much as I think it's more so about just trying to go out on his own and do his own thing. But I'm excited for it. I mean, he gave us, so many good years, so many Super Bowls, so many, great, games. How can you be upset about the guy leaving? Who cares? Let it go.
Joe Lauzon, class act. All right, now I'm going to check out for the rest of this episode and watch some Joe Lauzon highlight reels. Kev, if you want to just take care of it and buzz me in if you need something. Or if
I'm not going to lie to you, Joe. This is the most starstruck I've ever seen, Kev. When I told him, I know Joe Lauzon pretty well. I mean, we know each other. I know you. Yeah. We had lunch together one time up in Montreal. I thought that was really cool.
Here's the thing, though, Kev. What you do is you'll set up saying hey, buddy, I'm gonna be honest with you. Everyone in MMA and Jiu-Jitsu hates my ass. I say too much. So I'm when you say Joe Lauzon knows you, I'm oh crap, does he hate you?
Most people. I'm a bit of a crazy person myself, Joe. I get inside of my head. I'm doing my best. I wrote my notes again. Let Joe talk because unfortunately I have a bad habit of never shutting the hell up. But I'm doing my best to make the show be about you. First of all,
I think pretty much anyone that trains jiu-jitsu or does anything, we all got something a little bit wrong going upstairs, right? Anyone that wants to get choked and smashed and just destroyed all the time like that, there's a little something going on there. So
from the get-go, you're a little bit off.
Yeah.
First of all, I will say one thing. Being a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, a lifelong Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, I am definitely not upset about Tom Brady and Gronkowski coming to the Tampa Bay area. We're all laughing down here because
you stole our man. You stole our New England hero.
Being the lovable losers and the team that is usually just set to self-destruct, we're all laughing at the fact we finally got Brady, we finally got Gronk, and we're probably not going to play a season because the plague is going to wipe us out. That's
right?
The most devastating thing that could probably happen. I mean, we're not saying that, but in Tampa Bay's luck, that's usually what could happen.
Yep.
So let's talk about you. Let's talk about some MMA and let's talk about some jiu-jitsu. First of all, how are you? Is everything good? Going good for you?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. Obviously the coronavirus stuff all sucks. It sucks. Our gym shut down. All the gyms right here shut down. Most of the businesses are shut down. So that part is, really unfortunate. But everyone's healthy. All my family's good. My immediate family's good. All my extended family's good. So yeah, it's okay. We're okay at this point.
So I've got a few particular questions I want to ask you. I'm not real big on prepping because I just know you and I like to kind of let the thing evolve as it goes.
Yeah.
And so just based upon who you are, like in my opinion, I can't think of too many fighters in the history of the UFC that really you can really talk about as being the toughest guy to ever step into the octagon. And you are definitely on the top of that list, if not the top 2 or 3, as far as I'm concerned. What do you feel like in today's MMA? Do you feel like today's MMA has gotten away from that grittiness and maybe gotten a little bit softer? Do you feel like it still holds over?
No, I don't think so. I think there's everyone in the UFC is super tough. Like I don't put myself on one of those top lists. I think that if I had to be known as a guy that was really good and they just beat everyone up, or the guy that is really tough because he got his ass kicked, I'd go with the guy that was really tough and really technical, over the tough guy, right? Because it's being tough means you had to get beat up a lot,
right.
And not just once or twice, but a few times. So quite a few times. So I mean, but I don't think that things have changed now. I don't think that like the fighters are not as tough or anything like that. I think it's just I think guys are a little bit more technical. I think that overall, like when I first came up, like there were a lot of guys that were fighting MMA that were not really well-rounded mixed martial artists whatsoever. You had some guys that were like kickboxers that didn't know what an arm lock was. You had some guys that had great sweeps and great jiu-jitsu and had never been punched in the face. So I think that I came at a time where like I wasn't trying to get punched in the face, but I didn't necessarily shy away from it and break down when it happened. And I like jiu-jitsu, so I would basically started as an amateur. Even like a lot of my first pro fights, I was a straight jiu-jitsu guy. Maybe more of a grappler than a jiu-jitsu guy because like I never trained the gi really all that much the last couple of years. I was more of like a submission wrestler than anything, and I would fight people. I would smash them on the ground and I would submit them. And that was just basically how it went. And I felt like I always did a good job at kind of making other people play a jiu-jitsu game. Like I would shoot on them and I would either take them down or I would sit half guard or full guard or whatever I'd do, and then I would out jiu-jitsu them from there. And they just didn't have an answer. Most of the guys I fought just didn't have an answer. They were strikers or wrestlers or whatever. So, that was how when I came up. Now it's so different, right? You get all these guys that like badass wrestlers, like, oh, this guy's a national champ wrestler, and he's got great stand up, and he's black belt in jiu-jitsu. It's like
right.
It's like we didn't that was unheard of when I first came around. So.
Right.
I think real quick, what belt were you around when you started fighting MMA? Like what belt rank? Or were you just
I was a white belt. I had fought. Wow. I went from white belt to I never had a blue belt. I went right to a purple belt. It was after I fought Jeremy Stevens. We fought main event in the UFC. I arm locked him in the second round. And after that is when I started taking like a couple of gi classes. We basically added a gi program at my gym. We never had a gi program up to that point. So we had John Clark, who he went on the Ultimate Fighter. Like he's coach of Kyle Bachniak, a couple guys like that. So I've known John Clark forever. So we had him running the gi program at my gym, and like literally like the week after I fought Jeremy, it was like the first class we had. He gave me a purple belt, and then the next day I tore my ACL. So I was out for like a year, and then I was a purple belt for a while, and then I got a brown belt, and I got a black belt. So I've been focusing on I put a lot more time in on the gi in probably the last like 2.5 years, 3 years.
So based upon that, I have spoken to Matt Arroyo, who's my head coach, who knows you very well. His training, he was on the Ultimate Fighter when he came up training with you. Yeah, right. Matt's awesome, dude.
Yep.
So I talked to Matt a lot about you, and we talk about the difference between jiu-jitsu, and MMA jiu-jitsu. And he always brings up you as a perfect analogy because he says on the jiu-jitsu map, yeah, at the time, we're talking a couple years ago, you may have been a purple belt, you may have been a brown belt, but he says when you start to incorporate the MMA applications of jiu-jitsu, Joe Lauzon's jiu-jitsu becomes next level, high level jiu-jitsu simply because of the applications of MMA. Tell me what you think a little bit about the differences between MMA jiu-jitsu and jiu-jitsu.
So it's completely different, right? So Matt told me, and I didn't even realize this until like recently, a couple months ago, he told me this story, how like the first time I got to train with Matt. So I met Matt, I hooked up with Matt because Alan Bruby, Monster Lobster, was on the Ultimate Fighter with me. Right?
Peace out, Monster Lobster.
Yeah, right? And then he got Matt. I think he kind of helped push and got Matt on the Ultimate Fighter for the next season. I was season 5. I think Matt was season 6. And he kept telling me about this guy, Matt, he trained with, it was so good and all this stuff. And Monster was not very good, right? Monster was not technical. So I was like, how good is Matt? Like, whatever. And Matt was awesome. Like, he had really, really good jiu-jitsu. But the first time I trained with Matt, I think it was we did MMA. Like, we put on gloves. And if we had just grappled, Matt would have taken my lunch money, right? He would have just beat me down. Like, it would have been bad because he has really, really good jiu-jitsu. But I have really good MMA jiu-jitsu, right? So, like, I do a really good job at, like I'm going to get on top. I'm going to sit in your half guard. I'm not even going to try to pass. I'm going to just punch you in the head over and over and over, knee you in the body, like, just work people over. And that's kind of what I like to do. Whereas Matt is probably used to dealing with people that are doing more straight jiu-jitsu that are trying to pass his half guard. And when they try to pass his half guard, he has all these different things he does to kind of, I create openings and he takes advantage of those, right? But when I don't want to pass, when I'm content to just sit in half guard and control position and then punch him, it's a different story. So, for a long time, I think that I've been more focused on like MMA jiu-jitsu than a lot of other places have, a lot of other people have. So we've been doing like, we call it guard boxing, where like, we just ground and pound rounds. Like, I jump in someone's guard and we just try to beat each other up, right? I try to beat someone up from full guard. They try to sweep or submit me. And we've been doing that for like close to 20 years. No one else was really doing that until like maybe 10 years ago. So I just got a little more time on that stuff. But Matt said that like the first time we did that, like he felt he had never been beat up in any training session ever more than that day, right? And I just like, I wasn't, and Matt's a little bit bigger than me, but I just like, and I don't like, I'm not like beating him up to be a jerk, but I just try to keep people like a little bit, just like if I was grappling with someone or doing MMA, I want them to be a little bit uncomfortable the entire time, right? I want to make them just a little uncomfortable, a little bit, let them waste a little more energy being nervous, make them waste a little bit more energy that they're trying to defend a little bit more than they normally would. And people get tired, and then it gets worse and worse and worse for them. But I just made Matt really, really uncomfortable, and he didn't like it. He liked it, but he didn't like it.
To keep it in terms of a jiu-jitsu conversation, you use different approaches to make your opponent uncomfortable, to cause a mistake, whether it be shoulder pressure, whether it be action, things you do to elicit a mistake. So based upon that train of thought, how important do you feel like as a grappler in jiu-jitsu, particularly from the top position, it is to use these strikes? And are you thinking about these strikes in the and the recognition of an advanced position, and then towards the end looking for a submission or whatever pops up, or are you just content with sitting there beating the piss out of somebody?
I'm completely content with staying in position, doing damage, right? So it's a fight. It's not a jiu-jitsu match. Like, they're not giving me points because I passed the guard. It's not like, 2 points, or you're not getting points from mount or back mount or whatever, right? You're doing damage, right? It's wherever you can do the most damage, wherever you can do damage the best. So typically what I do is if I'm in full guard, so I'm not very good. Like, one of my things that I'm like, probably one of my biggest issues in the gi is getting the guard open, right? Because I'm used to posturing up in the guard. And for 20 years, I posture up in the guard and I punch down on people. And as they defend and they try and bring their knees in, then I pass. But I have a tough time with people when they just want to lock their guard and just keep it there. Like, that's like by far my most difficult time rolling in the gi in particular. Once I get the guard open, no problem. I do a great job passing. I submit, I pass, I mount, I take their back, I submit, I go into submissions like very, very easily. But even against black belts, I do really, really well. But getting the guard open is like, it's hard for me sometimes. Like, that's hard for me. So for me, like if we're talking like a fight or something like that, all I care about is damage. So in general, like I want to do sustained damage, right? So it starts with, okay, I'm in the full guard. I'm going to throw punches. They're going to defend. I'm going to force my way to half guard. And now this is where I'm going to stay. I can do the most damage in half guard. So I stay in half guard. I just keep hitting them, like until like they're begging me to pass. They want me to pass. I don't pass. I just keep hitting them. And then as it gets closer, when you get like less time, now they're being desperate. They're taking all kinds of chances to try to just please stop hitting me. And then that's when submissions present themselves, because they're trying to get away. It's like, they're trying to like get away, and you leave the arm up. If you get to side control, if I went from full guard to half guard, right, then, yes, they kind of have my leg. It's a little hard for me to pass, but I have their leg too. They cannot get back up to their knees. If they're stuck in half, then I have their leg. They don't have my leg. I have their leg, because I'm on top and I'm happy to sit there and punch people. The second I pass the side control, they can belly down, they can fight up, they can get an underhook, maybe they decide they want to turn their back and try to come up to all fours and come up to a turtle and defend from there. Like, they have options. In half guard, they don't have options. Like, I hang on to them and I just pound them.
Yeah, I wanted to say, just because it sounds like you have a lot of thoughts on specific positions in jiu-jitsu and their the equivalent level of importance in MMA.
Yep.
And it sounds like there's a lot of difference. Like there's like in jiu-jitsu, pulling guard, you'll see double guard pulls sometimes.
Yep.
Like there's some rule sets about pulling guard. And in MMA, there's definitely standout performers off their back, like Tony Ferguson famously against Kevin Lee. That's the most recent one that comes to mind for me. But, you know, Neiman Gracie and Bellator, he's doing a lot of crazy stuff off his back. How do you view working off your back in an MMA context as a black belt? Like, how do you approach it?
So I don't think you ever want to be on your back, right? But sometimes it's the better of, you know, two shitty positions, right? So like, If I'm getting beat up on my feet and I can't take someone down, right, I guarantee you I'm going to shoot and I'm going to pull half guard or I'm going to pull full guard or whatever I can to get the fight down, right? I think my chances are better on bottom of almost anyone, on bottom in full guard with them on top than, you know, being on my feet and getting beat up, right? So you got to kind of, you know, take it with a grain of salt. But if you have to shoot and then pull guard, then that's what you have to do. In grappling, I would almost never try to pull guard. Right. Unless it's I'm in the gym and I'm trying to work on stuff, like then it's 100%. You go for it. You know, you're not playing your best game. But if I'm trying to play like my best game, I'm probably not pulling guard. You know, I'm going to try to work a takedown. If I fail a takedown, then maybe you end up pulling some kind of guard off of that to make the best of a situation. But I'm never like going to go in a match and think, okay, I'm going to sit guard. I'm going to sit guard right away. You know,
right. Before we move on, I just got to go onto my YouTube channel and take down that competition footage of me pulling.
And it depends on your skill set, right? So like you got to play your skill set, right? I remember I did a Naga tournament one time, and I was going against a guy that I knew he was a badass wrestler. I knew he was a good wrestler. I had like a USA wrestling tattoo on his leg, like, and I had like no wrestling. I never wrestled. I've never wrestled in high school, never wrestled in college, and never wrestled. And I knew he would take me down. I knew he was. He had fought one of my teammates. Knew he was going to take me down. So I just, as soon as the match started, I just dropped to a knee. I dropped to a knee and kind of pursued him and kind of, you know, chase him down like that. Like I didn't drop to my butt, but I dropped down to a knee because now I'm on my knee. He can't take me down. You know, he can engage, but he can't take me down. And I kind of just chased him around a little bit. You know, and that was better. You know, if I try to pull full guard, you know, he had good base. He probably would have stalled me out a little bit, or I would have, you know, given up the 2 points for the takedown. And now he's up 2-0, and now he's just going to stall and not engage, and I'm going to lose on points. You know,
I think when you talk about the idea of guard, and it's important to realize that in the scheme of jiu-jitsu as a martial art, which is what all, you know, martial arts and all, you know, technical, they're all built around the premise of being a martial arts for self-defense to protect yourself from an attacker. I think when you think about the idea of guard, it's important to realize that guard is a very defensive position. So in other words, anytime you're on the bottom of someone, yes, there are opportunities for you to be offensive, but at the same time, it's not ideal. It's always a position you're using to protect yourself first and foremost, because your opponent has the advantage of gravity to be able to punch down on top of you. When you're in someone's guard, your strikes, yeah, you could strike someone if you got them in a triangle, do some other things, but the power of your punches is never going to be the same as opposed to the power of punches coming from the top. I think it's just an important distinction to make between sport jiu-jitsu and MMA or self-defense jiu-jitsu. The
other thing too to take into account is, like, you know, the days of Hoist Gracie, you know, fighting guys that didn't know what an arm lock or guillotine was are far gone. Right? There was so long ago. It's, you know, in the beginning, like even like when I started training in 2002. So when 2000 actually, when I started training, no one knew what jiu-jitsu was. They had no idea. Like I was fighting guys that were training for fights and they didn't touch the ground at all. They were doing kickboxing, just hitting the heavy bag. Like they had no idea what any of that stuff was. Like there was no YouTube, there was no scouting out opponents, there was nothing, right? So guys were like, oh, I'm pretty tough, I can fight. So they would go out there and fight. And you know what happened? I would take them down and I would basically just like bitch slap them over and over until they gave me an arm lock or gave me their back or something. Because they had no idea. They didn't know how to get away from anything.
Right.
And that are still gone.
In your opinion, how many, in the early days of your career, how many quote unquote street fighters did you have to?
Oh, probably a bunch. Like, so I used to go to like local fights all the time, and I would basically like just bring my cup and mouthpiece, and I would just like be ready to fight. I'd be like, oh, like there were a bunch of times when I took fights like the night of. It's like there was like we had a period. So I'm in Massachusetts. So for a little while, the commission was involved because it was basically the boxing commission, right? They knew nothing. Like they set it out like everyone has to wear T-shirts. All amateurs have to, because all the fights were amateurs. Amateur fighters have to wear T-shirts, and we're all like looking around like, huh? Like so then someone raises their hand, like, okay, like you know, a lot of us come from jiu-jitsu schools. Like, we can choke someone with a shirt, right? We can choke them. They're like, you can choke someone with a t-shirt? Like, yes. Like,
okay,
no one is
buddy.
allowed. No one is allowed to wear t-shirts. Everyone has to have no shirts because they had no idea what was going on, right? So in the beginning, we had the commission who really shouldn't have been overseeing us, but they were. And they didn't really know what was going on. And then for a little while, we had no commission. We would just, it was like the Wild West. Like, we could have been fighting with like meat hooks and cleavers and no one would have said anything to us. So there was no, like, there was very, very loose paperwork. Like, you'd be like, oh, do you have paperwork? I got blood and I got physical. Like, this physical is like 2 years old, but it's okay. It's all right. Good. You know, they let you fight, you know, like same thing with blood work. Like, they just wasn't like, it was the Wild West. Like, no one really cared. So I could just show up on any given night. Like, oh, I have my stuff. I can fight. You know what I mean? Like, oh, who's around 175 pounds? Who's around 180 pounds? Like, I can do that. I'm 162, but I'll fight a guy who's 180. You know, that's how it went.
So based upon that, because this is an interesting topic, because Dana White likes to talk about, and a lot of guys in the fight game like to talk about how the fact that commissions and the fact that the judges really haven't gotten up to par with the reality of what MMA entails, particularly on their judging teaching. Do you feel the same way? Do you feel like there's still room to grow, and how much? I mean, obviously from the old days, they're past that, but do you still feel like you're still a little bit jaded and or a little bit unrealistic?
So it depends on the commission, right? So a lot of times, if you have someone that's risen through the ranks of the commission and they're like at the head of public safety, they're probably older. They probably have never trained jiu-jitsu. They probably don't know exactly what's going on. You know, we're really lucky. We have a great commission in Massachusetts, and they're still handcuffed a little bit, right? Because there's bylaws that they have to follow to a T, and then there's like kind of gray areas where they can kind of, you know, make decisions on their own. And when there's things that are like written in stone, they can't budge on that stuff. Even if they know it's a stupid rule, they can't budge on it. So we're really lucky in Massachusetts because we have a good commission. And they're down for like I could pick up my phone right now and I could call like the head of the Mass Commission right now, and he would take my call and would address and talk about anything I wanted, you know. And sometimes you can do things, sometimes you couldn't do things about it. Depends on like laws and stuff. So like some commissions are really, really bad. They're completely like the Florida commission is not the best, right? Like I fought in Florida a couple times. It's not the best. It's not the worst, but it's not the best commission sometimes. It's just you get guys that are like they've been around forever, or they're guys that were like doing kickboxing in the 80s. And they don't know what an arm lock is. They have no idea. We had a referee that stopped the fight recently. Two guys, like you know, one of the guys that fought in the UFC. One of the guys was like, you know, kind of UFC hopeful, and they're fighting, and the guy's in a triangle, and he starts just like bongoing on the guy's head, and the guy's escaping. He's getting out of the triangle, right? He's in a triangle. The guy on the bottom is bongoing on his head because he knows he's losing the guy's head, just trying to get away. And then, you know, the referee stops the fight. And the guy's like, he's defending. He's getting out of a submission and these inconsequential strikes. You know, and you just got a referee that just doesn't fully grasp exactly what's going on. And it sucks sometimes, you know, and it's really unfortunate. When I fought Jim Miller in Vancouver, right? And it was so Jim Miller won the fight. He won the decision, right? But every media person gave me the fight. It was like 52 out of 52 media people gave me the fight, right? Like I took him down. I spent a 15-minute fight. I spent like 9 minutes on top, like ground and pounding. I had a bunch of takedowns. The strikes on the feet were pretty even, right? But I was in blue shorts, right? Obviously no shirt, blue shorts though. But I was the red corner. I had red tape on my gloves. Jim was in black shorts, but he had blue tape on his gloves. So the judges all gave it to the guy in the blue corner, right? So I think they choose me based on my blue shorts, but I had red tape in my gloves, and you know, so like I was like super upset. Like I thought like it wasn't a fight I was even questioning the decision, right? It was like it was a very clear sided. It's the second Jim Miller fight, very clear. I thought I had the fight for sure. Like I wasn't like I told you my fight. Oh, we're done. I figured we're 1-1. I'm like we're done. We're not fighting again. And then they announced him as the winner. I'm like what the fuck? You know, come to find out. One of the judges had never scored an MMA fight ever. The very first time. Never done an amateur fight, never done a pro fight, never, you know, so it's like that part is like super unfortunate, right? Because again, it's like who do you know? It's like, oh, you're like I'm on the Vancouver Commission and I choose the judges. So my buddy's really interested in MMA. I'm gonna give him a seat. He's gonna get a front cage side seat. He's gonna be a judge. Like, doesn't matter. I lost $60,000. But you know, but that's just so like that part's unfortunate.
I think when you talk about a lot of these old legacy type commissions, because a lot of them are based off boxing, so a lot of them been around. Boxing's been around for 100 years now, and a lot of these commissions have been around since the 50s and 60s in particular states. And the thing what happens is you get guys that have just been in the business for so long. And they're old, and they're probably ex-boxers, so they're a little bit punchy. And they get upset, and they get angry, and like, what's this kid going to tell me? You're not going to tell me. And I know how to do my job. You just go sit in the corner 100%. And you do yours. And then, just like you said, you get in a situation where, like, oh, my buddy Teddy, he trains a little jiu-jitsu. He's been at a gym, or he likes to watch the UFC. We'll let him come in and judge.
Me and my buddy Lou, we saw the Karate 100%. Kid like a dozen times. We get this. We get it.
Garbage. And it's unfortunate, and I think that's like, I think it's becoming less and less, common, but it still happens. It still absolutely happens, and it's unfortunate. I think that, as time goes on, more of those commissions will kind of work, they'll kind of be weeded out a little bit. And, you're going to have like a lot of guys like me that have been around for a long time. Like, I probably wouldn't want to be involved in the mass commission just because I have my gym here and I have so many fighters. So like, I wouldn't want to, it'd be like kind of a conflict of interest. Like I wouldn't want to go and have to be on the commission side and not be able to be there for my fighters and the coaches side. But I think that a lot more guys that are knowledgeable are going to, kind of slide in and do a better job.
So I will back this up, and I'll kind of segue this just to kind of give judges a little nod here, just to say the fact that, like, coming from someone that has been around fighting and ref jiu-jitsu matches, never refed an MMA fight or judged an MMA fight, but I've watched my share of MMA fights. I've been cage side for a bunch of fights. I've done some sparring. I never fought MMA, but I sparred a little. Coming from someone that's been around that for a long time, very rarely do I ever watch a fight and think to myself, wow, that was just no way that guy won. It does happen. And I say that by this. When you're a judge in a fight and you're sitting ringside, no one in the world has the view, and no one in the world has the understanding of what is happening in that fight except for someone that's sitting ringside. Because you watch it on television and you see punches that you think land. It's just not the same unless you're there. You don't really feel those punches unless you're there ringside. You're not looking right into the fighter's eyes to find out if that caused the amount of damage that it did, or if it really landed as solidly as it might have looked on the television screen. So based upon that, judges have a very tough job. But I always go back and lead towards the idea that, these guys have the best view of the fight, and they're being paid to watch this fight and judge it. So I give them that nod sometimes.
Yep. And it's hard too, because like, how do you compare it? You're comparing apples to oranges, right? It's like, okay, if we're talking let's say we're talking just boxing, right? If you and I have a boxing match and I land a ton of shots, I land way more shots than you, right? But they're kind of like like none of them are super solid. But then you land a huge shot at the end of the round, a haymaker, and it drops me. So you landed one big power shot, but I landed a volume. I landed a ton of shots, but I didn't hurt you. But then you hurt me. Okay, how do you compare those two? Okay, then a jiu-jitsu match. Okay, I position you and I go. We have position. I get completely worked positionally, right? You pass my guard, you mount me, you take my back. That's happening, right? But then I almost submit you. I get really, really close on a triangle and arm lock at the end of the round. How do you compare that? And now, how do you compare the jabs against the really close triangle? It's so difficult. So it's like, I understand, like, being a judge is a hard job. My issue is when you get guys that are not even the slightest bit qualified to do a hard job already. It's like, well, it's a hard job. No one's, and I feel like people kind of get a little bit of an excuse built in sometimes, like, oh, it's a hard job. Like, no two people agree on a fight. Like, yeah, but you have a job to do it right. I have a job. I have my job to do it. It's sad that the person that's in the cage risking their life and limb getting the beating gets screwed because I did my job, but you didn't do your job. And it's not only that, but it's like, so the way fighters get paid, you have a show money, you get win money. Right, so if my contract is like 60 and 60, I get $60,000 for fighting. I get an additional $60,000 if I win. So my expenses are generally the same, right? So all my expenses come out of the win money. So like, you have that $60,000 gets cut down really quick between tax and everything else. And then the win money is what you're really fighting for. So then you don't get the win money. It's just, and then not only that, but it's like contracts generally, they move up. So you might be 60,000 and 60,000, but then your next fight you might be 65 and 65, but only off of a win. So if I get a loss on that, it's costing me $60,000 right up front. But then every fight going forward, it's costing me $5,000 and $5,000. So it's just like, it's such like a big hit on people. It's such a big deal to go and pay a guy $150 and he's like texting on his phone. He's not paying attention.
Right.
Like, come on.
Yeah, I was just going to say something that we've seen a rise of people complain. I think, would you agree that right now, like compared to the first days when MMA started seeing mainstream success in like TV and pay-per-view sales, more people that are watching have a deeper understanding of the intricacies of all parts of MMA than they did towards the beginning. Like there's a growth there.
Yes, for sure. People are way more knowledgeable now. I think in the beginning people understood like knockouts and they were booing, the second the fight hit the ground. I think people understand a little bit better now. Some people still don't know, but I think a lot more people understand. Like they can tell when someone's getting a guard passed, or they can tell when someone's in a bad place, or an arm lock or a submission or something.
Okay, so a lot of people have said that the way forward isn't judges per se, but sort of like crowdsourced live judging of events. You'll see like Instagram pages, like I think one is named Live Judging, where it'll ask people to vote on what the round was scored. Do you think there's any validity to that, or
not yet? Not yet, because you might as well flip a coin. Flip a coin. You're doing the same thing. It's because then you get a guy. You're trying to tell me that if Conor McGregor's fighting Khabib, the Irish wouldn't have won the bet.
The guys from Pakistan are going to
beat up the
vote
entire time. We're going to crowdsource it. 82% of the vote thought that Conor won that, because he got beat up the entire time and got mangled and everything else. Like,
but he's Conor McGregor.
Yeah, there was a fight recently where I forget what show it was. There's a guy that got submitted. One of the fighters got submitted in like the second round, so the fight got ended, right? The judge handed in his card and had that guy winning the round.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's like, dude, it's so bad, So I think that there's definitely there's a part of it that's on the judges, right? For sure. There's bad judges. That part needs to be rectified. But there needs to be some kind of better criteria, right? Even if it's not a good criteria, give me something a little bit more definitive. You know what I mean? Like give me 3 points for grappling. Give me 3 points for striking. And then, maybe if I dominate the grappling and the submissions, maybe I get 3 points for the grappling and the other guy gets 0, right? If the other guy, beat me up on the feet of the striking and I didn't do much to him, maybe he gets the 3 for striking. But then maybe you kind of, you scale it somehow based on where the majority of the fight was, okay? Like, well, I won the grappling, he won the striking, but it was mostly on the feet, so he's going to get it. There needs to be something more clear as far as that goes. Like football is like, you get 7 points for touchdown, 6 points for touchdown, and then the extra point or 2 point conversion or a field goal. Like it's very cut and dry.
So I will defend not having that in one way, and then maybe this will help you.
Okay.
Maybe give you a reference for it. I'm not. I would never go against what you have to say.
No. I'm just examples. I wish we had a more solid criteria.
I think the reason why they don't have a distinguishable scoring system in an MMA fight is this. It's simply because if I'm in the third round and I know, and they still do it anyway, but you see a lot of guys lose fights that way. Perfect example was Johnny Hendricks from GSP. Thought he had the bag, went out there and took a nap in the fifth round and ended up losing the fight. The reason why they don't do that is that on the other side. So like if I had a fight with you and it was a great fight, it takes away the idea of a puncher's chance, because now I know I'm up by 15 points. I know distinguishably, okay, I am up by 15 points because I see a scoreboard right there. So now in the fifth round, I can literally run around in circles and I don't have to fight anymore. In the third round, I don't have to fight anymore. I think what it does is it maintains that level of competitiveness. So in my opinion, just my opinion on this, I feel like the answer isn't changing the rules. The answer is just making sure guys are more educated, man. Just get guys in there that know the sport. Start outsourcing the guys that are black belts in jiu-jitsu or guys that have been trained. There's plenty of them out there. I know a ton of them out there that would love to judge MMA fights. You're good, babe. Hi, babe. Let me see what you made. Let me see what you made.
Can you show them?
Let me see what you made, honey.
My Wally I made.
He made a
nice work. Nice work, Bubba.
Oh,
awesome.
I love that movie.
Good movie. That's great, Joey. I like that Wally. I like it too. Yep.
Hey, Joe. Joe.
That's like Kangaroo Show.
Is it just? Can you hear him, Joey?
Yeah.
There you go. He couldn't hear you guys.
Joe, if you want to take a break and we'll just talk with Joey, that's cool. I want to.
So he's been really big lately about doing like arts and crafts stuff. So like every day he's making he wakes up it's great because he doesn't wake up me and my wife. He just lets us sleep for a little bit. So he get up at 6. He's like, oh, I made a monster. I made a robot. It's like it's the best to go. Like we buy him all the art supplies he wants.
This is the world we live in, by the way.
Yeah,
it's just to have your kid walk up. It's no big deal. We're cool with it. We're cool
whatever.
with it.
I know.
How are you doing with the quarantine and everything? We kind of ask all our guests that, but just specifically as a family man,
We're okay. So my wife is a nurse at Children's Hospital in Boston. So she's had a bunch of COVID patients and all that kind of stuff. So that part's a little bit hard. Everyone, luckily, we've all been healthy so far. So that part's good. But it's a little stressful because at any point she's gonna get the coronavirus. Whether it's from a patient or it's like they'll have she'll have a patient that's there for someone else. It's like, so she has like a lot of patients could be like new onset diabetics. So like they're there for teaching, right? So Katie's there and she spends a lot of time with like the patient and then the patient's family and that kind of stuff. And they're just in close proximity. And maybe someone's got the COVID that is not diagnosed yet. It's going to give it to her and bring it home and just like, so it's a little bit stressful because of that kind of stuff. But overall we're okay. Gym stuff. Obviously, my gym is just hanging on by a thread. Yeah. We'll see how that. I'm sure every gym is kind of the same boat. But
I don't even want to talk about that. It's such a sad little thing on the horizon that I'm trying to not even bring up. Because, I mean, obviously, but it's frightening. Yep. I'm worried about the recent renaissance of Jiu Jitsu and MMA really taking a really strong hit because of all this stuff.
I think it'll be okay. I think, there's definitely going to be schools that were just hanging on just barely that are going to go under because of this. I think that there's a lot of gyms that are like run like more of like a commercial kind of gym. Like they understand what's going on. Like obviously Matt and Midget and my gym. Like I think those gyms are like people that, put a lot of thought, just as much as we put a lot of thought into jiu-jitsu and everything else. We put the time into thinking about our businesses. Then I think that those gyms are going to kind of stick around. I think when you have gyms that are like just barely hanging on before, I think that those gyms are going to have some trouble. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's change the conversation here a little. We talked in that we beat the MMA judge. And it was good input. But so
I also real quick. I also love that. Like, oh, what about crowdsourcing? And Joe Lauzon's like, you forgot the Irish exist. And I'm like,
that's 100% the truth. I mean, there's no way in hell if you think judges are impartial. Think about dudes that's family are in the audience. I mean, there's no way you get an audience to be impartial.
Or maybe the other way around. Maybe freaking all the Russians. Well, like they're crazy. Like I get so many like messages from Russians on Instagram. Like I have no idea what they're saying. I can't translate it because they're sending me DMs. No idea. I think they're fans. They generally seem to be like good things, but like I don't know. But Khabib fighting someone else and Khabib gets knocked out, but all the Russian fans all have their botnet going and they're all voting. Oh no, Khabib won. Khabib smashed.
I'm more concerned about an angry Russian fan being mad at me than I am about an angry Irish fan. The Irish guy's just going to get drunk. The Russian guy might actually come after you.
Dude, it's crazy.
So let's talk a little bit more about toughness, because one of the things that I always think about you when I think about you, and I brought it up in the first question I asked you, is what a tough, rugged warrior fighter that you are. I mean, obviously you're a technical fighter, but just listening from your own accord, like coming up in the early days, maybe you weren't as well-rounded, you didn't really have as actual technically sounded training as you might have liked. Of course, you got into that. You understood that you needed that if you moved on. What do you think about the idea of being a warrior versus a technician? And obviously there's going to be outliers on both sides. There's going to be outliers on the technical side, and there's going to be outliers on the toughness side that allow them to rise up into the ranks. But what do you think needs to be? What percentage of both do you think need to be incorporated in a particular fighter to make them successful?
So obviously it's a sliding scale, right? You can't have a guy that's super technical, but the second he gets hit, he goes down. Right. And you also can't get a guy that's super tough, but has no technique and just goes out there and wings punches, right? You got to kind of be in the middle. I think, honestly, you got to be like 50-50 or like maybe 60-40 brawler, I think is more exciting, because you got to think. So fighting is more of a it's a spectator sport, right? It's sports entertainment, right? It's a sport, but it's all about like the reason, like, so Dominic Cruz is fighting Cejudo, right? Dominic Cruz ranked like 6, right? Why did he skip over the other 5 guys? A couple of things. One, Dominic Cruz is super technical, right? They like Dominic Cruz because he does all their broadcast stuff and he's just a great mind and he just speaks well. He's had tons of success whenever he fights. He's slipped down rankings because he's been injury prone and he's gotten hurt and things like that, right? So, but he's getting the fight because it's entertainment, right? He's going to give great interviews. He's going to be awesome. He can back it up when he does fight. So you gotta be a little bit more exciting than boring and winning, right? Like even Floyd Mayweather, right? Who's like a super technical boxer, right? But he's super technically sound, like with defensively, right? He's got great offense too, but he's known for his defensive skills, right? Some Mayweather fights are great for someone that enjoys boxing to watch, right? But the casual fan, they're gonna go and spend $70 to watch Mayweather and have him not throw 3 punches in a round. Right. It's just like it's hard, you need to entertain people, and I think you're gonna. I just think that when you're trying to entertain people, fans in general as a whole would rather watch two guys covered in blood swinging for the fences that have no technique rather than get two guys that are super technical and just barely missing each other and not connecting.
I always say that to young fighters that I work with. And I always use you as a perfect example of that myself, to tell you the truth. Like, it's important. It's very, so you got to have technique. You got to be smart. And you got to be able to win fights, but you also have to remember that this is a business. And the business is entertainment as much as guys. And that's the one thing that fighters and fans and old school guys that like to talk about, well, brawling, these guys don't do anything. They're just brawling. They're super tough, but there's no like technique to it. You have to understand that at the end of the day, all we're doing is to pay bills, is to keep asses in seats and to be entertaining. So I think in that idea, when I think about that, I think about as a young fighter, if you're an amazing wrestler and you're just going to take somebody down and hug them, maybe you get a couple wins at it, but you're not going to get on a big show that way. Eventually you'll break through if you're a grinder, but you're never going to be on somebody's radar unless you're out there finishing fighters or finishing fights. So it's important to think about that because, again, you're taking a little bit of risk because if you're a big wrestler, you take somebody down, you hold them there, right? Then that's an easy win for you. But by opening up and saying, okay, cool, I'm going to go out and go for the kill, it helps you along that loan. So I think as a young fighter, you need to be able to go out there and win. And I think when you use the idea of Mayweather, I think of the same thing as GSP. Towards the end of your career, like it's okay to start focusing now on longevity because you've made a name for yourself. You put yourself in a position where you can sell fights like Mayweather or GSP just being yourself. So maybe you're boring in a sense, but you still win, and it keeps your career going because you're not taking those chances.
So I've talked to Matt a bunch, and like I'm going to use the example, kind of throw him under the bus a little bit, but Billy Q, right? So Billy, he wants to always fight the toughest guys. He wants to go out there and have like fight at night performances on like small local shows before he's in the UFC. Right. And I'm like, I kept telling Matt, I'm like, I understand, like, and coming from me, I've had all kinds of fight of the nights. I've had all kinds of bonuses. I've had like fights where I got beat up. I had fights that were just wars and brawls and stuff. Right. And Billy, I'm telling you, you do not want to have those fights on the small local shows where you're not going to get paid for it. If you get to the UFC and you want to have those fights, go for it. Go get your $50,000. That's the time it makes similar sense, but you need to take smart fights. It's not fighting the toughest guys in the world. You can't have snooze fest fights. But you need to fight smart fights and get in front of Dana for the Ultimate Fighter or the Dana White Contender Series or whatever else. And I think that's kind of more of the play now. And it's worked out better for the UFC now that they have the Dana White Contender Series and the Ultimate Fighter and all that stuff.
That's a great addition to the UFC, man. That Contender Series is awesome.
Because now this is what happens. Guys have to show they can win. They have to get a good record, and they have to show they can win and have decently exciting fights to get on the show. Mm-hmm. And then they get that fight in front of Dana when the lights are on, and they get their opportunity to have a great, exciting fight, and they still have to win, but to have a great, exciting fight. And if you get a guy that is, 12-0, but he's a boring wrestler, it's going to take someone out and lay on him, he's not going to get past the Dana White show. He's going to get on there like, oh, he won, but that's not what we want. That's not interesting. We don't want that guy. And he's not going to get any further, Whereas sometimes you get guys that like maybe don't have the best record, but they fight their balls off, like a Matt Frivola. Right? It's going to, go out there and be a maniac and have a great fight, and, they're going to love him.
So I'll say just to back it up, I'd say one thing about the idea of being a brawler. It's important to realize that young fighters out there, you think you're invincible, but in reality, you only got 4 more. You only have a finite number of those brawling battles and wars in you, believe it or not. Eventually, your body gives up, your mind gives up. You just don't have it in you anymore to dig in deep for that. You don't get too many, so don't waste them on bullshit.
And the other thing on that too is like guys need to be smarter about sparring and being a tough guy in the gym, right? No one got anything ever by being a tough guy in the gym. No one cares. We had one of our guys. So Calvin Cater is fighting Jeremy Stevens next week. Right. So one of my guys was sparring with Calvin. This is like before the lockdown. This is a couple months ago. And, and my guy was going at Calvin a little bit harder and not too hard, but just like was a little more intense than Calvin was being. And Calvin turns it up and Calvin hits my guy and drops him and puts him down. Right. And my guy pops back up to his feet right away. Definitely got concussion, right? Slight concussion. Definitely down. He's up. He's like, I want to keep going. We pull him right away. We're not going to let him. We're not going to let him go again. And he's like, no, I want to go. I'm okay. And like, you're not okay. You're done for the day, 100%. Because we're not going to argue with him, right? We just don't let him know he's done. And then, like the next day, he starts texting like, oh, I was like, you were right. I didn't realize the time, but I wasn't good. And we didn't let him get hit for it was like a month and a half, and then we had the lockdown. right? So it's like it's so important to guys. Like understand like it's a rough sport, right? You're gonna get concussions, you're gonna get hit, I mean that's the nature of the
part
sport.
Of the game.
Right?
It's what you do. You get hit in the face. That's what happens.
But you can obviously try to be more technical and not get in the brawls with people and be smart about who you're going with to minimize that, right? But when it does happen, you have to be incredibly disciplined about making sure you take care of it. Like anytime I've got any kind of concussion, it's like minimum of like 2 months before I have anything come back in my head. Yeah. I've had fights, like all those fights that people saw where I got, I definitely got concussions and I got beat up, right? I didn't spar for 3 to 6 months after some of those fights, right? Because you have to take care of your brain. And I think that's helped a lot as far as like longevity for me. I'm not drooling all over myself. I'm not forgetting things all the time. You have to be smart about, recovery and stuff like that. Another thing, like, and I tried to preach about this, but I feel like it comes up because I think it's important.
Please do, Joe, because I think this, I believe me, if someone suffers from some concussions, I boxed a long time ago when no one gave a shit about that stuff.
So I think another thing, so like one thing is like, I've never had alcohol in my entire life. And I don't hate on people. Like I'm not upset. Like I have no problem. Like I'm the designated driver for my wife every single time we go out. She can have whatever she wants. Don't care. And go with my friends. I'm always willing to be the driver. Like I don't care, right? I just never drank, right? And I'm not like preaching, oh, no one should drink alcohol. I never started. I had bad alcoholics on my mom's side of the family, so I just never started. And since I was 16, I've always had fights coming up. So it was always a kind of a good excuse to not drink, right? But I can't help but think that like all these guys that fight, like how often you see guys that go and fight and then they get shit-faced for 2 weeks after the fight.
After they 100% had concussion problems.
100%.
Anytime you fight, anytime you spar, your brain is getting jarred every single time.
So now it's like, okay, they've gone 2 months or however long they've gone without having any alcohol and not drinking, hopefully, right? And they get all the way up to the fight. And then after they drink because they're upset and they're sad, or they drink because they're happy. That's right. So like you get your head smashed in and then you just flood it with alcohol and poison it. And then you wonder why you're having problems, so I definitely I try to get preachy about it, but I think that's like such an important thing, as far as fighters go. Like you had a fight, you definitely damage your brain. Don't make it worse by going on and get shit faced. I think that's why there's a lot of guys that have had like a lot of they're kind of punchy, and I think a lot of it's because they go out and they get smashed, they get concussions, then they go and get smashed drinking.
I talk about that a lot, and I do not mind people that bring that up because that's one of the things that I always want my young fighters to understand. The people that I work with are younger. When you're in your 20s, you're not going to see the effects because you're invincible. Because your body, your metabolism kicks so hard. You're not thinking about not being able to find your keys because you're still functioning on such a high level that shit's not going to bother you. It starts to bother you in your late 30s. It starts to bother you in your 40s. And the damage you did in your 20s, the reckless lifestyle you live in your 20s, catches up with you really fast.
I'm not going to make any like medical declarations. I can only go off of what I've seen. But a big thing that a lot of people talking about this topic in particular was just like Nick Diaz. Past interviews compared to like some of his more recent media appearances. You get the sense that the guy is not the same. That's like it's that there's a difference there in terms of how he's able.
There's so much. There's so many variables in it, though. Is it from the drinking? Is it from all the weed he smoked? Is it from has he done harder stuff? Like how many times has he gone? Had other hard weekends or whatever, doing whatever else. Like who knows exactly? There's so many variables. Is it part of his diet? They eat crazy like vegan and all this other stuff. Like is his brain a little bit more affected because of that stuff? Like it's really hard to tell. But I just I don't think anyone would say it's against common sense to say that drinking a lot of alcohol after getting a concussion is good for you. No, right? It's like there's no way it's good for you.
No way. I think it's important that as coaches, just like you said earlier with your young fighter, that we look out for these guys. We say, because they're not going to do it. They're not going to police themselves because they're stupid.
They think
the same thing that makes you an amazing fighter is the same thing that harms you. It's the idea that you think you're invincible and you could drive through anything and be tough and pass through anything. But it's our job as coaches to make sure that we keep these guys safe. And I think it's very important. I'm proud of you for taking that stance, Joe. I think it's a big thing for coaches to do.
Got to look out for them. They're not going to look after themselves.
Yeah, we talked with Ray Longo the other day, and he was definitely just number 1 through 10 priorities were his fighters, in terms of just how they're doing with like how this is going to affect their momentum, how they're doing mentally, how they're doing health-wise, just like making sure that they're training at home, but also just getting rest and being safe and being present in their lives. Are you having to do that with like your teammates and the guys that you're working with, just checking in on them?
I've been checking in with them. Like I don't think it hasn't been crazy. Like I don't feel like it's like a super big thing. Like I'm telling all my guys, like I don't want to see you guys training. Like I know some of my guys, like they're getting together, they're grappling each other's garages and they're doing this. I'm like, you guys, you're just being assholes. I understand. Like I want to train. I want to do stuff. I want to, I want to do everything that you guys are doing. But like it's just not going to be worth it. It's going to take one person's mother's going to die or something like that. Yeah. It's going to be like, maybe it's from you guys doing jiu-jitsu in the garage. Maybe it's not. Who knows? I don't know. Like, we don't really know. Yeah. It's so tough to, really rule it out and say, create your exposure to be zero, limit it to zero, because you go to the gas station, you could get it. I could stay in my house and not see anybody, but I go to the gas station and I can pick it up off the pump. It's so hard to tell what's going on. Whereas my friend could be doing jiu-jitsu every single day and then not go to that gas station and not get it and be fine. It's like, it's really hard.
I agree with you. It's going to take a body count. It's going to take dead bodies stacked up before people realize.
It's just hopefully the government like starts to clamp down on 5G towers. They wake up.
All the anti-vaxxers and all that.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just tried to joke about that with a computer scientist, which is just a terrible idea.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
So let's talk. We'll get back to you. I want to talk about you because I got a few questions. We're getting towards the end here. I want to get some good opinions in here because I want to talk about some of your amazing career stats and some of the things that you've accomplished in your career. So you've been in amazing wars, and we keep saying that. I'm going to keep saying it because you deserve it. Who do you believe, based upon your career, what do you believe were some of your toughest fights? And maybe the one you feel like was just the toughest fight where you were like, I don't know if I'm going to get through this or not.
I mean, every fight's tough for different reasons, right? It's like I don't think about it as like there's not like one particular fighter that was super tough because we're all do the same thing, right? We all have different attributes, we all have different strengths and weaknesses. And it's also like what happened during camp, what happened in the prep, for the fight. One fight that was like a camp that was going great until like 3 weeks out was I fought Evan Dunham, right? And Evan Dunham is like a badass, like black belt in jiu-jitsu, really good stand-up, really good wrestling. He's big for the weight class, like he's long, like he's just like every possible, issue you could have, he, is going to come your way from Evan Dunham, right? And I was having a really good camp. Everything was good. And then I was sparring. It was like 3 weeks out, and I threw a right uppercut. And as I threw the uppercut, my partner got a little bit close to me, and I kind of bended my wrist in like this. So like I threw the uppercut, but I jammed my wrist sideways, right? And I just jammed it. I was like, so like I shook my hand out. We stopped sparring right away because we're pretty good about sparring sessions. If we have some kind of injury or something like that, it makes no sense whether it's you got dropped in the gym or something got hurt or whatever. It makes no sense to try and push through because if it hurt off of that, you try to push through, you're just going to make it worse, right? So like we stop right away. Think it's not going to be a big deal. I tape up my wrist for like a week. I think it's going to be okay. I try to train again. Wrist is really hurt. Like I couldn't hold up like a can of soda. I couldn't open a Gatorade bottle. I couldn't do anything with my right hand. Couldn't put my right hand in my pocket. It was so bad. So but now we're 3 weeks out. Like, what do we do? Like, I've already done the bulk of camp. I'm literally have like a week and a half left of training, and then we leave for fight week. Like, what do we do? So I go to a doctor. They see about, what's going on. They do give me a cortisone shot for my wrist, and it makes it magically feel 100 times better. And like, I'm able to box a little bit, and with boxing gloves, it feels fine. I think it's going to be okay. And then, we get there for the fight. We make weight. Everything goes good. We're warming up in the back room. And now for the first time, because we haven't been doing it, I've been punching boxing gloves. I put on the MMA gloves, and I go to punch the mitt. I'm like, like my hand is like, it is not okay. Like, I think it's okay. I don't think it's okay, but I think it's like 80 or 90%. And I realize it's like 30%. Right. So now it's like, what am I going to do? I made weight. I'm literally in the locker room. I got my hands wrapped. I'm ready to go.
I'm Buccaneer now. So
here we go. And it's a fight where like, it's a super tough fight to begin with. Right. It's like, he's a black belt jiu-jitsu. He's got great jiu-jitsu. He's got great wrestling. He's got great stand up. So he beat me up for 3 rounds. I thought I was in the fight the whole time, but like, I did not win a second of the fight. Right. I was a human punching bag out there, So that was like a really, really hard fight. Like, that was like, I remember like he threw a kick like in the third round, and like I blocked it up, but his foot kind of came around like and kind of got me the toes. And I'm like, oh, the fuck, why am I here? This is so stupid. It's like every fight is a little different, right? Every fight had different things, whether it was like an injury during camp or it was just, they just did something unexpected. Like they just, they came out and did something unexpected. I fought Anthony Pettis, and it was a super short fight because he kicked me in the head. But he came out as a southpaw. We weren't ready for that. Like if I'm sparring if I'm fighting a southpaw, every single sparring partner I'm going to have for the entire camp is going to be a southpaw. I will not step foot in front of a righty. Same thing if I'm fighting a righty, I'm not going to step foot in front of a southpaw. But he's a righty, but he came out as southpaw. I'm like, oh shit! And I fought a lot of southpaw, so I knew what to do. But it just like it threw me off for like a split second. Like all the things we had planned on and worked on, all out the window. And then he kicks me in the head, and all I remember is being in the back room and then ripped my gloves off. I'm like, that didn't go very well, did it? Like, no, it did not.
So let me ask you another one. Let me ask Puss in this direction. So, I think that when I think of someone that's tough, I think of the idea of someone that doesn't have to be strong, doesn't have to be the best technician, but someone that their will is unbreakable. Yep. Someone that's there's nothing you can do, no matter what you throw at this guy, for some damn reason they just keep coming. It's like the Terminator. Yep. Do you feel like when you fight, you use your toughness and your ability to not break in order to help to break people's desire? Because I don't care how technical you are, how strong you are. If your will to win is broken by another person's indomitable spirit, I think that is the deciding factor at the highest levels of fighting. What do you think about
that 100% that happens. Like, so one of the things that guys tell me that sparring partners that I deal with all the time is like my footwork as far as like being fancy and like stepping around and being weird like that and technical like that, but just I do a really good job of bringing like forward pressure and kind of like forcing people to the fence. I do a really good job of controlling the cage, and it definitely happens a lot of times when I fight too. But like in sparring, like they're seeing it all the time. It's not like it's a once in a while thing. It's like a consistent every single day. I think it's a little more apparent. And I think that definitely, keeping hands up, good defense, and just walking people down, and no matter what they throw you, it sucks when you throw a whole bunch of punch at someone, and like we do a lot of like drilling, right? So like if I know what you're gonna punch, what you're gonna throw, it's very easy to catch it and counter it. Right. But if I just catch and I walk closer and I catch and I walk closer and I catch and I walk closer, it's kind of like you don't even want to throw the punch because it's going to be a complete waste. You're wasting energy, and that counter might be coming back. I definitely, when I fight, I definitely try to do the same thing. I try to just eat up space and try to, just like pursue people with good defense. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I definitely think that's like definitely a big tool that we try to use a lot.
I think it's cool that you bring that up too, about the fact that when you spar with your partners, they know your game. So obviously they're not going to be as adapt to or easy to get to with what your bread and butter is. I think it's always fun for me when I compete, and I tell people that I know that are competing that like what you're going to find is the things that are your bread and butter go-tos are going to work so much better when you're going against someone that you're not showing the same route to success day in and day out.
Specifically for me, like my last tournament was the NJ Fed before the coronavirus really ramped up, and I have this like sequence of pulling guard into like a sit up sweep from like it's just basically like I try to like pull guard right into a single leg stand up immediately sort of situation, and I haven't pulled that off in like 2 months successfully in live.
All your guys know it.
Yeah, they're like, "Oh, Kevin, you suck," and then they'll bully me, and then they'll just like noogie me. They won't even submit me; they'll just like noogie me and like spit on me. I love you, Ruben. No, but that like it worked out. It was really oiled well the minute I needed it to be, which I felt really reassuring to know that like you need to go out into the real world every now and again.
So one of my guys, Andy, he has like an awesome misdirection shot, right? So like I stand as an orthodox, like I'm a righty, so like my left foot is forward, and he always drops like he's gonna hit a single, and he slaps you the inside of my leg, and he expects everyone else to step backwards, and he shoots a swing single on the other leg, right? So like he taps my front leg, I step back with that leg, and he shoots a swing single on the rear leg, and like he hits it so freaking well on everybody because they all they react to his misdirection. I just don't react at all. I just leave my foot right there, and he will never, ever, ever take me down. It's the only takedown he can hit, and it drives him crazy because he's so good. He used to just tech people when in high school. He would just tech people with that misdirection shot. He would slap at their leg. They would always step back, and he would shoot the other side. And I just know, like, there's no way he's gonna double leg me. His double leg is trash. So I just don't react at all. I just look at him and just.
Well, that would freak me out. Like, what psychopath isn't gonna pull the leg back?
Yeah,
Like,
but I know
him.
But I know him, but no one else does. So like the misdirection works on everybody else. It just doesn't work on me. So that's the same thing as what you were saying.
Oh man, I have like a real quick question, just to go back to you saying that when you fought Pettis, he came out as a. Oh, hang on one second.
Yep.
He came out as a southpaw.
Yep.
And that didn't work with your prep.
Yep.
Has there ever been a time where like a situation has happened during the fight that you were preparing for that you it was exactly what you prepared for? Has there ever been a moment where you just immediately go into what you were drilling and it comes out on top for you?
It's happened in a ton of fights. So like we're super specific in like things that we drill and things we try to use as triggers. Couple things quick. I fought Gomi and I took him down like effortlessly. Like we worked on throwing like a slap hook. So he's a southpaw. So I try to keep my foot to the outside of his foot, and I would throw my right hand, kind of a decent right hand, but I would just go right hand, left hook, and when he brings his hand up to stop the left hook, we would shoot a single leg, right? And it was a go-to thing. But we took him down like effortlessly. So it worked great against Gomi. When I fought Kurt Warburton, who only had a couple fights in the UFC, but we worked a lot on like a slipping off and come back with a right hand, left hook, and I dropped him with those beautifully. When I fought Jens Pulver in the very beginning, my first fight in the UFC, we worked a lot on right hand, left hook, and really burying the hook really hard so we could get him to keep his hands up. And if he kept his hands up, we could shoot on the single and take him down. And I did that beautifully right off the beginning of the fight. And then he managed to get to the fence. He got back up, and then I did the same thing again, but this time he sprawled because I had taken him down once. And I hit him clean with the hook, which is exactly part of the game plan, right? It's like you're making him make a choice, right? Does he keep his hands up and not get knocked out? Or does he drop his hands and try to defend a takedown, right? I don't have to guess right. He has to guess right. So if I throw a heavy hook and he keeps his hands up, nothing lost. If I throw the heavy hook and he drops his hands, he gets knocked out, right? If I throw the heavy hook and then I go to the single, then I take him down. Or if he, it's kind of like a game. Like he has to be perfect and I don't have to be perfect. I have to just be right once. So like we have like a lot of our game plans for fights are something similar to that where we basically make them make a choice and we have two different things that we're going to attack off like a similar situation. But yeah, there's been a lot of fights that have gone just like exactly as we wrote it up. When I fought Jamie Varner, we worked on like when he double leg me, he shoots a blast double. So two things happen. One, he breaks his right hand all the time in particular. So we let him punch me in the top of the head a whole bunch. I just stayed in his face the entire time, my head down, and he broke his hand on my head. And then dead serious. Yeah. And then he shoots a blast double. So we worked on the blast double, getting a double overhooks and sweeping him. And I got the sweep. And then I ended up jumping in a triangle, which is kind of improv a little bit. But the sweep was perfect. It was exactly what we worked on. It was like probably the only thing we worked on that entire camp.
I remember that fight. That's an awesome. You went up that whizzer and you jumped into the frigate. I use that. I think about that. I actually spent about 2 or 3 weeks practicing that and working that off of like a single leg come up after watching that fight.
So taking the back and jumping the triangle was something I've been doing like for years and years and years. Right. But doing it off of that sweep was brand new. I hadn't done that in forever, but we worked on that sweep a lot. But and we got fight of the night and we got submission of the night for that fight. Like it was just a great fight, But there's been a lot of fights where we were like super specific on prep and drilling, and it came through in the fight.
So one quick, and I'll try to tie this up because I got one more quick question for you, and I got something that I'm curious about. So to young fighters out there that that are coming up, because you're talking to someone that is a legendary figure of the MMA world. Like I am always impressed with your longevity. And when I start to think about things, when I talk about greatest of all time, I think that one of the essential ingredients to that is longevity, because it's not just being able to fight forever. It's being able to stay employed forever, because we talked about the UFC as a business. We talked about the idea that, this is a business. And at the end of the day, if you're not making money for the business, you're not doing your job. Therefore, we cannot continue to pay you. So I have one quick question for you. How important talking to young fighters do you feel like it is to understand that this is your opportunity and you have to perform under the lights? You have to be able to go out there and do it when it matters and be able to put on an exciting fight when the opportunity arises for you to do that. Because I know a lot of guys that aren't good at that. What do you think about that? What do you think about things you could would say to young fighters to help them out?
So like I was saying about like the Billy Q thing before, right? You don't want to have fight of the night, performance when you're fighting on a local Tampa show and we're making $1,000, right? Do it when you're fighting the UFC. You're going to make 10 and 10 and maybe $50,000 bonus. Like that's when it kind of matters. You have to think like every single fighter is its own little business, right? For the UFC, right? It's like if I have a fight and I fight someone else, right? Okay, what is this fight going to cost them? What is my show money? What's their show money? What's our win money? What is this going to cost the show, right? And then what are we going to bring to the show? I can't expect to like, if you want all this money, everyone wants to make more money, right? Everyone wants to make more money no matter what their job is, no matter what they do, whether it's fighting or it's landscaping or it's, building houses or whatever. Everyone wants to get more money for what they do. So you have to basically, have a product that's going to, be valuable to people that they want to continue to pay you, right? There's two ways to go about things. You can try to get all the money, as much money as you can right off the bat and have them give it to you for a couple fights and cut you, or you can give them like good value for a very long time. And I've had a whole lot of fights. Like I think it's 27 fights in the UFC. And I've been paid well for a lot of the fights, like towards the end. But in the beginning, like, it's like you're on the Ultimate Fighter contract. I think like I was like 8 or 9 fights in, and I was at like 10 and 10 or 12 and 12 or something. Which is what guys get now to start.
Right.
Like it's obviously like when I fought Pulver, the show money, fighting show money was $3,000 and $3,000.
That's crazy.
And now it's like guys, first fight in the UFC, you're like 12 and 12, right? So it's like you gotta kind of find like that sweet spot where it's good for the fighter and it's good for the promotion, good for the show. Yeah. And the other thing too is like you need to work with the promotion. Like so many of these guys are just like super like just like not good employees, right? I understand we're not employees, we're contractors, but you need to one hand's gonna wash the other, right? Every time the UFC has asked to do anything, we've gone above and beyond in every possible way. And they've taken care of us. They've given us good opponents. They've given us good contracts. They've done all this other stuff for us. You can't just be like only out for yourself and then be upset when your employer or whoever doesn't, look out after you.
Awesome, man. Joe, you're freaking awesome, dude. We had Ray Long on Monday, you today, man. I can't tell you, this is like a dream for me to be able to talk to you guys, man. So I mean, not just, again, just going back to listening to the way you talk. I mean, even more than just your ability to fight and your ability to put on a good show, it's your character that I think separates you from other people. Because at the end of the day, when you talk about Tom Brady, you talk about these guys at New England, like talent gets you there. Character keeps you there and makes you win and gives you the championships and gets you to the top. And you as a person, I think of not just as a competitor, not just as a super tough dude. I think of you and your character, particularly after talking to you today, that I feel like is your real strength, man. So, I appreciate it. It's easy to get there. It's harder to stick around. 100%, man. 100%.
I'm a little off put by the fact that you said you're going to watch the Buccaneers games.
Come on down. We'll go to a game whenever you want.
You can't tell me you're not interested to see how it's going to go.
Hey, look, I'll do it incognito mode.
It could be a complete dumpster fire for the Buccaneers, right? They could think, oh, we got Tom Brady, we got Gronk, and it doesn't matter.
If they taint Gronk and Brady's legacy just by having a donger of a season, that's gonna.
If there's even a season, who knows?
That's kind of what we do down here in Tampa Bay, by the way.
I don't know.
I just wanted to. Oh, well, yeah. Sorry,
it's good. It's good either way, because if Brady does great, if Brady and Gronk do great, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be really exciting. If they completely tank, that's going to be exciting too. It's just going to be like, no matter what happens, it's going to be great.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to, because we're technically a jiu-jitsu news outlet, I just wanted to bring it back to BJJ for a second. You are MMA superstar, no question about it. But, lately we've seen a lot of mainstream MMA guys doing public, like, grappling matches. Like we just had Austin Vanderfort. Surprisingly upset.
Right?
Boogie, friend of the show. It was an incredible performance. Like it really shocked a lot of people. So like a lot of people were saying that's not how it's supposed to go. Are there any matchups that you would be interested in that kind of space, like a submission underground, like jiu-jitsu, like cream of the crop? who would you want to go up against?
It wouldn't matter, you know. Like up until now, like so, like I did a grappling match in Metamoris against Dillon Danis, and I lost in the first. But it was fun. I had a great time doing it. Like it was, but it's me, you know. So I don't know if I'm 100% done fighting or if I would maybe fight again. Like I'm still on the roster. I'm still like they're still, you know. I told them throw names at me, throw dates. You know, let me know what's going on. You know, because if they sent me like a good matchup that I liked, I would 100% jump in and do it. You know, so, but I get paid so much better to fight than I do grappling and jiu-jitsu. It's like, is it worth doing a jiu-jitsu match? You know, obviously I'm sure you saw the Vinny thing with his leg or his ankle. You know what I mean? Like if I go and try and make, I'm going to get paid, you know, $5,000 to go to a grappling match, but now I can't fight for a year where I could have made
cost you $100,000,
$100 to $200,000 per fight. It's just like, it's like, does that really make sense?
Didn't Cub Swanson like really injure himself
towards ACL?
Yeah.
Towards ACL.
Oh man, that's
So it's
and
like,
he was just coming off of his win against Kron, and now all that the momentum is gone.
Yeah.
And,
So it's just you gotta kind of think. If I determined that I was 100% done fighting, I would be more apt to doing it. But if I'm thinking I'm 100% done fighting, it means that I'm probably not going to train to the same extent. I'm not going to condition to the same extent. Then it's like, do I really want to go and, you know, ruin it? So I don't know. But I'm definitely down for whatever. Like I love jiu-jitsu. I have fun doing jiu-jitsu and grappling, and so I'd be down for whatever. Someone has names, tell them my way. We'll see what happens.
All right, you heard it here first. Joe Lauzon calling out the entire Danaher Death Squad all at once for a tag team match.
I think so. I went against Dillon Danis and Metamoris, but I think it was supposed to be Gary Tunnen first.
Yeah. I remember that fight. Somebody had to put him at the last minute.
Have you seen Dillon's Bellator fights?
Yeah. And so that's kind of like similar. Obviously I don't have the same level of jiu-jitsu that he has, but that was similar to like how my early fights were, right? It's like, you know, I have really good jiu-jitsu, and the disparity in jiu-jitsu is very similar, right? Like I had like good jiu-jitsu, and the guys I was fighting had no jiu-jitsu. He has very good jiu-jitsu, and the guys he's fighting have some jiu-jitsu. So it's like similar, you know, but like, what do you expect? The guy's like, he's making a big name for himself. He's getting paid way more for his early fights. You know, he's probably, you know, taking a big jump, a faster jump than most people would. I'm sure, you know, the Conor influence is, you know, helped and hurt him, right? Because now like he's talking this big game. He acts like a super douchebag online, but like I can tell you after the Metamoris thing, he was super nice to me. Like he was super nice. Like we went to Metamoris. I think I paid. We all went to Cheesecake Factory after. You know, I paid for him. You know what I mean? Like it was like 4 or 5 of us.
Joe, you can't blow up a spot like that.
I know, but it's like
to maintain.
you see him being like this big super douchebag, but like I think he was like living with his mom and like, you know, this nice quiet kid and just like whatever. Like
I think a lot of these guys, there's always the person and the persona. You know, a lot of these guys, everybody wants to make that Conor money. Everybody wants to go out there. So like the template now is to go out there and make a name for yourself as this big crazy lunatic that's going to sell fights and be edgy and all these other things like that. But I think at the end, and this is in fighting in general, every time I've ever met anyone from the fight world, there's very few that I go, that guy's a dick. You know what I'm talking about? Because you can't be a dick. You can't be an asshole to be
You don't get good. You don't get good because no one wants to help you. You know?
Yeah, no one wants to train me. And you don't learn. You don't get better because you don't learn.
Yep.
Right.
All right. Well, I'm just about done, Joe. Thank you so much for stopping by, answering all the questions. Kevin, you got anything else?
Man, I do, but I'm gonna let you go, Bubba. You're good, man. We had you on for a second.
I got a few more minutes. I got
a whole notebook of like serial killer scribbling. I keep forgetting what I want to talk about.
I have like 8 minutes. I got to leave in like 8 minutes, but I got to get to it.
I was gonna do a whole spiel about how you're a dope dude, but Kevin summed it up pretty great. So, I'm just gonna piggyback off that. But I will say thank you so much for coming on, Joe. It means a lot. We can't wait to see what you're doing next, whether it's grappling, MMA. It's going to be a showstopper, no doubt about it. Is there nothing you wanted to plug, or just
nothing? If you guys
you haven't started a Twitch channel like all the other.
You want to watch me play video games for a couple hours?
I play a lot of video games. I got my headset over here. I got my controller. I mean, like we're good. But I don't want to like. I've been playing a lot of Call of Duty Warzone.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. And
I'm on that Red Dead.
Yeah. So it's like, but for me, it's like when I'm playing video games, like I don't want to be doing anything else. I'm playing video games because I want to hang out and I want to like relax. I want to decompress. Like I spend so much time, like especially right now, like it's way harder running a jiu-jitsu gym right now, like with all the online stuff and the Zoom classes and that kind of stuff.
You gotta be creative. You don't just get to go to the gym and teach and have fun. You gotta
easy
actually
before.
think about shit.
It was
right.
easy before.
Right.
Like, oh, I'm gonna teach an arm lock today. We're gonna do a triangle tomorrow. It's like now it's like, okay, did I post the image? Did I schedule the Zoom class? Did I get it going? Am my light set up? Is my camera set up? It's just like
I tell you what I find difficult from doing this when I'm teaching, because I'm actually going to go teach a class for Matt right now at 6. So what I find difficult from all this is the fact that, like, it's very difficult. You can see their little faces on the screen, but it's difficult to understand for me if I'm actually reaching them without them looking at me. So when you got to sit down, you got to talk for 45 minutes or an hour, you know, sometimes, because now you're doing nothing but technique, because there's nothing else you can do from you give them a little workout, but you got to sit there and teach the whole damn time because they don't get to go drill. It's difficult for me, you know, when I'm sitting in a room, I got all their little faces, I can understand if what I'm saying is reaching them. If they're retaining what I'm trying to say, and if what I'm saying is good. It's been a very difficult process for me looking at a screen to have that same effect.
It's hard for me because, like, sometimes, like, you know, like, the phone is set up in a way that you can't really see exactly what's going on. It's like, oh, great job, Johnny. And all you see is, like, you know, it's like you're seeing like this. You're seeing like the top of his head. See it. Like, what is he doing? I don't even know. Like, so it's hard to give input. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm real, like, I give, like, all my, whether even like my little kids, like, I give them a hard time. Like, I bust their balls on stuff. Like, is that how you do that? You know what I mean? Like, you know, and all of our adults, like, I just basically just like harass them and like give them a hard time and, you know, talk trash to them about what's going on. And I think that, like, people, like, they like that. Like, they like the kind of like the camaraderie that comes out of it, you know. And it's not quite the same when it's on a Zoom class, because I'm like, Johnny, that sprawl sucked. And I get, like, moms are like, listen, like, what are they doing right now?
What do you think of my kid?
Yeah, I know. It's not even Johnny's. It's not even, I'm telling Johnny his sprawl sucks, but it's like Sam's dad that's listening, like, what is he saying? He's just talking trash to that little kid. Like, he's being so nice.
Sam, are you being cyberbullied, son?
I know. It's just like, it's just not the same, you know?
But it's cool. It's funny you bring that up, because that's what I think about too. Because I literally spent half the class just cracking jokes.
Yeah, of course.
Because jiu-jitsu is fun. It's cool. But a lot of what we're missing is the camaraderie. It's going to a building and seeing all the dudes that you see all the time, or the people that you see all the time, and sharing that community. So it's important. And even if because half the classes I teach, but people aren't drilling what I'm doing. They're just sitting on the couch watching this shit. They're fucking bored. They hate it. But it's the idea of being with each other and saying, I'm here. We can talk a little bit. That's good stuff, Joe.
It's going to be weird when we all get back, because, like, they're not going to just let us go back. It's like, okay, you guys can do jiu-jitsu. You can cover each other's hand, you know, mouth with your hand, and, like, we're going to be doing like dummies for a little bit. It's just going to, at least we'll be in a building. We'll be together.
We're a long way off.
Gracie Baja is doing this whole thing where they're allowing, like, limited people per class. You got to do all your drills in a 6x6 square, like, on the ground.
With who, though? Who are you going to drill with? You got to drill with yourself.
You got to bring home a grappling dummy that they'll show you how to make.
I think,
and it's just like,
I think we're getting. So we've been doing grappling dummies for our people at home, because obviously you can get a way better class if you can, you know, have them drill in a dummy, which is a lot better. But even once we get into running classes, I bought like 50 grappling dummies, because it's going to be they have no class or have like class with a dummy. Yeah. And if we have class with a dummy, at least we can get people together. You can still get the social aspect of it. You can see each other. You can have a routine. You can you do stuff a little bit better. I think
Matt's going for that. I think that the other answers too is having more classes. I think you're going to have to start having more shorter classes, maybe like 30-minute classes, like 4 of them or 3 or 4 of them a day instead of 1 or 2 of them.
So I think I'm going to start. Like, we normally start our classes at 5 o'clock. We do like 5, 6, 7. I think we're going to start classes at like 2 o'clock. Yeah. And we're going to have like 2, 3, 4, 5.
You want to do out the day like a spin class, and you call in and sign up. When it fills up, you got to go to the next one.
Yep. That's the plan. Right.
Well, we're all going to figure this out eventually.
We're going to get it.
Until then, we're going to live to Pahada again, everybody. You just gotta have a patient. You gotta be patient for it. We're all starting to get stir crazy. Like, I haven't shaved in a while. Kevin's shaving too much. Like, you gotta stop. I miss the beard.
I like being pretty. I feel pretty.
Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for joining us for a very insightful, mellow, and New England themed episode of the Jiu-Jitsu Times podcast. Special thanks again to Joe Lauzon for joining us. You can follow him at social media on all platforms. I have been your host, Kevin Bradley, joined as always by my co-host, Kevin Gallagher. Stay safe. Wash your hands. We'll see you next time.
Later, guys.
Hey, man.
Later.